Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I want to try and emulate those chats that we have on the sofa where we're watching TV and then suddenly...
I interrupt you.
Yeah, you pause whatever we're watching and you ask me something really out there like, what are your thoughts on grounding mats?
And then you tell me, you say to me, well, have you listened to my podcast? And you know the answer is always no, because no offense, but I don't listen to your podcast.
So this is exactly why I think an episode like this would be fun and helpful for a lot of people, because we're bombarded with loads of information from lots of different sources. You don't get all your information from me unless you're asking me in front of the TV on the couch, but you're listening to loads of other pods. You've got loads of information coming from social media, and that's what has directed your morning routines and your evening routines, which are phenomenal.
I love my wellness morning routines.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Rochelle out wellnesses me in so many ways.
I do, and I love it. I love it. However, I also convert you into certain things.
You do, actually, yeah. And so this is why it's also interesting, because I'm naturally a skeptic. I'm not a cynic, I'm a skeptic. There's a big difference between the two. A skeptic is someone who is naturally sort of curious and is, guided by the evidence. A cynic is someone who's never going to get on board. So if you say something ridiculous to me like tongue scraping, not
ridiculous.
I know, we're going to get to that. So I changed my mind a lot based on your practices and actually looking into the data myself.
You've made me so happy.
All right. So a lot of other people make you happy as well when research has proved me wrong. So let's go through your routine and we can you're going to ask me the questions here. You're the interviewer today.
Okay.
And I want you to, just be as open and as curious and give me all the hard questions that you would.
Sure. So how much time do we have for my wellness routine?
We have...
it is quite extensive, and I'm constantly looking to add things to it.
Yeah.
Have a stack, if you will.
This is the other context I want to give to folks, actually. I should have said this at the start. Rochelle majors in the majors. So you do exercise, you have generally a very fastidious, consistent diet. You eat a lot of fiber. You do all that. You sleep optimize. We're going to get to that. So these are things that you have stacked onto an already really good routine. So that's a very good. I just want to caveat that. And you're also one of those annoying people like I am, who seems to be able to do everything. You've got a 1-year-old. You work full time. You show up for family events. You're always sending birthday cards. You're always reminding me to do this. All those things. Like, you're just incredible. So I just want to give props to my wife there as well. She is absolutely amazing. Okay. All right. Let me have it.
Okay. So my morning wellness routine. We have a 13-month-old baby at this time. So depending on what time he wakes up, both of us try and wake up before him.
Yeah.
But he's a wild card.
He's an early riser now.
He's an early riser. Even in the dark in like London winter, he's still like waking up really early. So I normally get up at 6. You're normally up before me.
Yeah.
Ideally, and this is like also like everything I say now is on a best efforts basis.
Yeah.
Pre-Rafi, very consistent, could get it all done. And just as you have children, you need to accept that you can't do everything that you set out to do. Yeah. And I think as someone who's super type A, I really struggle with that. But you can't let it throw your whole day off. Yeah. So on a good day, I would start off with my red light and meditating. So I have the red light Lumi box, which you gave me, which I love. I love it so much. I also have a red light mask, but I think it's more potent in the box form. So I start off doing a meditation. And I use Michael James Wong's app.
Just Breathe.
Just Breathe.
Yeah, Just Breathe.
Shout out to MJ.
Yeah.
I love it's the only meditation app that I've liked. I think he has a very soothing voice.
Legitimately, I have to listen to this every morning.
You have to listen to Michael James Wong every morning as well.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing.
And do you know why I think I like it? I think I like it because there's music there. It's not just silence. And I have quite an active mind. So the music, it just gives me something to sort of focus on. So I'll meditate whilst red light boxing as well. So I sort of hold it up in front of my face, promote collagen, elastin, does something healing, I'll take it.
Should we start there? Do you want to, because your morning routine is very extensive.
Oh yeah, should we just break down by?
Let's break it down. Yeah.
So my red light box.
Okay. So tell me a bit about why you started red light therapy. What were the intended benefits?
So someone sent it to you and I stole it.
Okay.
So that's how it came into my life.
Yeah.
As I understand, and again, I'm not in the medical profession, so my knowledge is going to be sparse. But as I understand, it's very good. It's red light and infrared, and it's good for healing. So as a woman in her late 30s, I will do anything to maintain a youthful look.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing it to sort of stimulate healing and collagen production, etc. That's what I believe it does.
Okay.
Please tell me what it actually does.
Okay. No. So you are right. So red light therapy is often grouped under this name called photobiomodulation. I don't know if you heard of that.
I have.
Yeah, you probably heard of that on a podcast, right?
Nope.
So it's not my podcast, but what it does is it groups different wavelengths of light. So light comes in different wavelengths, and essentially it's delivering this light at very relatively low power to stimulate something called your mitochondria. So your mitochondria are colloquially known as these sort of powerhouses within your cells. They also have a strong immune function. They signal to other cells. They're actually foreign. They actually have a different DNA to our own. They're actually the sort of leftovers of bacteria that were actually not human in origin at all. And the hypothesis is that the light is absorbed by a particular element within the mitochondria, and that shifts their cellular signaling to produce more energy. That's the sort of the thinking behind it, or the proposed mechanism. Another thing is that it can increase something called nitric oxide, which improves something called vasodilation, which basically stimulates better blood flow to the area. And the result, again, this is the mechanism that is proposed, is that it can improve tissue healing, it can improve cell resilience, it can reduce inflammation, which is why people are using it in lots of different ways. So one of which is the way you're using it, which is skin and cosmetic appearance, stimulating things like collagen and elastin. And there are some supportive studies for wrinkles and skin texture with these particular devices. And I think you want to get a device that has a recognized wavelength that is actually within the specific criteria that these studies have actually been done on, which
double check that.
I think
I'm assuming the Lumi one is.
It does, yeah. And we're not sponsored by Lumi or anything. I just want to put that out there. But
would really like a full red light map though. Thanks, Lumi.
I'm sure someone's going to send you one after
that's on my
this.
Christmas wish list.
But that's essentially the thinking behind it. So the skin and wrinkles and that kind of stuff. So there might be some benefits for that. The other thing is pain relief. So when you direct this red light to certain areas, whether it's your joints or your elbows or certain areas, there might be some potential for less pain. I actually met someone at the Health Optimization Summit that's got this device that essentially shoots red light directly at different joints like your knees. And they actually have been doing some studies on this as well, which I think is really interesting.
It's super interesting because, as you know, I have been using the red light box on Nutmeg.
Yes.
So Nutmeg, our queen, first
Queen
child,
Nutmeg.
she had a spinal injury, and as I understand, small dogs are prone to knee issues, and we've noticed that she has a tendency to like chew on her knee, and we've been told that she might have a little bit of knee pain. And I've been using it when we get to my PM routine. I've been using it in bed with her.
Yeah.
She's on our bed. And I noticed that when I use it consistently, she chews less, like she stops gnawing on her knee. So I think it is having an impact to her pain.
Yeah. I think, subjectively, a lot of people have said after using red light therapy that their joints improve, their pain improves and all that kind of stuff. In terms of like the data from human outcomes, it's really mixed, and I think it really depends on how frequently it's been used. And there's lots of what we call heterogeneity, so there's loads of like mixed protocols and the way in which people use these red light therapy devices. I think in the grander context of things, I know, as we're going to get to, you're doing loads of other things to improve skin health. You've got an incredibly colorful and rich, diverse diet. You get enough protein. You're getting enough fiber. You're eating essentially in an anti-inflammatory way. You're exercising. You're doing a whole bunch of other things. So if you wanted to add this to your existing routine that's doing a lot of good stuff, I don't think it's a bad thing to add to.
It is sometimes really hard to distinguish what is, if you look at skin specifically, what is having an effect.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
products you're using actually have an effect. It's kind of like a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Totally.
Fingers crossed, hope for the best.
Yeah, because you're doing
approach.
so many other things. So it's going to be very hard from a scientific perspective to actually like draw out, is it the collagen? Is it the red light therapy? Is it the fact that I've just got a really good diet? Is it the fact that I'm stressing less? Is it the fact
genetic?
that my sleep's improving? Is it genetic? Yeah, all these things. But you know what? If you want to try it, great. The other thing I should mention is hair growth. So there is a potential mechanism by which hair growth could also be improved by red light therapy.
Red light therapy. I hadn't thought about that because I'm postpartum, so I have all my little baby hairs. Which is super annoying. Maybe I should try it on that.
Well, you know, I don't know if you've seen these like hats that guys are wearing now. Have you seen that?
No, I've not seen the hats, but I have seen some red light masks for your scalp. That's really interesting.
That's why. So
but hats, that's such a clever idea.
Yeah, hats are a very clever idea. I think your mate Brian Johnson, you know.
I see my mate.
Yeah. As soon as you watch that documentary, you're like, I want to do all of these things.
I know. He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah, he's fascinating. I actually quite like his stuff. I mean, I think he's definitely on the wackier side of the spectrum.
I mean, he has money and time to spare.
Yeah,
right.
exactly,
I mean, that's not for like your everyday.
Yeah. And to be fair, like
but
you know,
also if that makes him happy, good for him.
Yeah, totally. And I think you know in the same light, red light therapy I don't think is a must for everyone.
No.
I think it's a potential cell signaling tool with some theory behind it. But is it the first thing that I would start with for people looking to improve their skin? Absolutely not.
No.
I'd say this is definitely down the bottom. But one thing I think that is really useful is you stack this with your meditation routine. So you're actually using the red light therapy not as like I'm thinking of the time in the morning. You're not like doing 10 minutes of red light therapy and then you're doing 10 minutes of meditation. You're stacking them together.
No, you have to have
which
it stacked.
I think is smart. Yeah.
I'm all about I'm all about an efficiency.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's be honest. A lot of the time when I start my meditation now, life post Raphael, he's screaming in the background. And that's why that is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
To meditate peacefully with this screaming child in the background. So you sort of do everything on a best efforts basis. But if you can combine two things, why not?
Yeah. How are you thinking about your red light therapy now? Are you going to keep it?
Of course I'm going to keep it. I love the red light therapy. What I kind of regret, and I mean, it's not too late, but I did have this thought, I should use the red light on my C-section scar. And that was my intention. And then I just never got around to it because I was doing C-section massage and that became a whole thing. And actually now when I go to bed, which is probably when I would do it, I've given my red light to Nutmeg, doing her spine and then doing her little knees. So
that's a really good thought. I didn't even think
I should have done on my C-section scar.
Because you already do the stuff that we would do. Again, high protein diet, anti-inflammatory diet, massage.
I did the scar tape for a while. I need to get back into that. I mean, there's just so many things to do.
And you spoke to Anita about that. So you got that protocol. And I think that...
And I went to see a pregnancy physio who gave me the massage routine, etc.
And then you added that. So you could
I should do 2026 goals.
Okay.
So, habit stacks. I'll add that one to my list.
Yeah. So look, interesting. From a biology point of view, I don't think... I haven't added it to my routine. Would I? Maybe, if I had the time and inclination.
If you had a full body red light mat, you could do your meditation lying down.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Think about
and
that.
I just think, because I know some people have the big panel blocks in front of them that they meditate in front of.
Yeah.
I think I would just like the mat that I lie down on, and then I could also put Nutmeg on there as well, so she would get whole body red light.
Yeah, the stuff for pets I think is really interesting, particularly from an injury improvement point of view and rehab point of view. I actually think red light therapy for rehab is probably underutilized, and I think there could be rationale for that.
It's got to be also cheaper too, because otherwise we also have for our very precious dog, a physio because she sustained a spinal injury. That's the background. It's not preventative physio.
For sure.
But she had a spinal injury, and so we were having to do rehab. So we have a physio that comes to the house once a month to do her little exercise, and she's doing. I don't know the frequency that she's using, but she's using little red lights on her and like lasers, and she. I walked in the other day, and you know what I'm talking about. Nutmeg, I left the room, I walked back in, and Nutmeg's there wearing sunglasses.
Oh my God.
And Megan is like giving her laser, and it was just the funniest thing. Please make sure that you share a photo of that.
I'll
it's just
definitely
brilliant.
share that. Yeah.
But also, like, that's if you could get a good quality red light, that saves you a lot on physio, on physio costs.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next one.
So that's my red light meditation.
This is literally like the conversations we have at home.
So after that, I have my loaded drink, which is water, filtered, my hydrolyte, so my electrolytes. Now, I will caveat that I need to find an unsweetened, unflavored electrolyte that I like because the ones that I'm taking are probably not the best. I know they're not the best, but I also think it's not that bad in the scheme of things. You can't be perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. So I have in my water hydrolyte, plus I have what hydrolyte? Oh, creatine. Now, creatine I started taking about 6 months ago. I think it's been good. I've noticed a difference when I go to the gym. So I'm having that every day. I think I have around 5 grams.
Yeah, you do.
So I'm happy with how I've introduced that. The other thing I'm thinking about is colostrum. Because everyone is drinking colostrum. I hear every podcast I listen to, everyone's advertising Amra colostrum.
Yeah.
So I bought some sachets when we went to LA and we visited Erewhon, my favorite store ever.
Yeah.
And I've had it once. I don't love the taste. And maybe it's just a mental thing. I don't like the concept as someone who has been pregnant and, it's just kind of weird concept. But why are people drinking colostrum? Do I need to drink colostrum?
Yeah.
Is there any science behind it?
Yeah.
Is it just a weird fad?
Okay. So I think this sort of like ties in with the whole raw milk thing as well.
That's another thing I would love to talk about. Unpasteurized milk.
Yeah, so unpasteurized milk. So and I think the ick factor is because it's bringing to the surface the fact that we are drinking a fluid that has come directly from a teat of another animal. And I think that's why people are like, oh, colostrum, what the hell?
But milk has as well.
Yeah.
But you know, we were talking about this yesterday. I just have this ick factor about it.
Yeah.
But it's the exact same as milk. It's just milk at a different stage.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe it's because I've just breastfed that I find it weird.
Maybe it's that. I think also we're so disconnected from our food system that we've lost sight of that. Every time we go to the supermarket and we grab a plastic carton of, milk or, beef wrapped in polystyrene, we don't make the connection between the fact that there was a living animal, it like grazed for months and then it was taken to an abattoir, had a very bad day, and then now it's all like packaged up in like polystyrene.
Yeah, it's not good when you think about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So and colostrum is the first part of mother's milk. Essentially, it's a thicker substance. The way that it's packaged into these sort of wellness products is that it's dehydrated. So you can get it in a sachet and then just add it to whatever.
Yeah.
And the thinking is it's got probiotic benefits, microbiota, accessible carbohydrates. So essentially what Raphael had when he had colostrum from yourself, he would have had these substances that would have built up his own microbiota. Yeah. So there's some potential gut health benefits that are being banded around by these companies saying, we should be having more colostrum on our diet. And then just parlaying that into raw milk. Raw milk is milk that has not been pasteurized. Pasteurization is a really important process when we think about scaling milk production, because if you think of that, that image of the teat being milked and all the bacteria that lives on the surface of the skin, it's very, and in a farm environment as well, where there's loads of bugs breeding around, it's very easy for the bacteria to go into milk, which is nice and warm. It's a perfect environment for
it to live
growth.
in. Yeah.
And then, it gets put into a jug, and then all of a sudden you've got basically a very harmful pathogen in high doses that you ingest and can cause serious illness, diarrhea, etc. So pasteurization is a process that gets rid of all those microbes, which is very good from a safety point of view. The proponents of raw milk will say, if you get raw milk from a good source and you know exactly the farm it's come from, they've got good hygiene standards, it's been kept at a temperature that, prevents growth or whatever, then it's got, again, some of these benefits because you're getting the microbes and it helps you actually digest the lactose because it's got the bacteria that breaks down the lactose, the sugars that can be troublesome for a lot of people. So you can sort of understand the rationale for that. I don't think it's worth the risks personally.
Some people rave about it.
They do rave about it. And I think it's because of the potential probiotic benefits of having those microbes in the raw milk itself. There are also studies that demonstrate that when you consume raw milk, there is a more diverse microbiota. The question is okay, so what? So what if you have a more diverse microbiota? Are there safer ways in which you can do that with a probiotic that's gone through a pharmaceutical standard of safety and you take in a capsule form or a liquid form? I'd prefer to go for that rather than drinking raw milk personally. I had Max Lugavari on the pod a couple of months ago when we were in LA, and he was like, people eat raw fish, they raw beef.
Very true.
And we don't think about that, but as soon as we start thinking about raw milk, people are up in arms about it, and so and that actually made me think, he's right. Raw milk shouldn't be something that we just completely disregard because it sounds weird. I think there may be some benefits there, but would I personally want to take the risk? I don't think so.
And I guess there is that concern about where you've sourced it from and how it's been stored.
Yeah, when you haven't been to our farm yet in Punjab, but where my dad grew up and my mum's got a family as well, all the milk's raw.
Yeah.
You wake up at the crack of dawn, you go to the cows, you milk them, you put it in the bucket, you churn it, you make butter, you take the cream off.
But they're consuming that straight away, like that day,
exactly,
I imagine.
Exactly.
And so that's where the difference
Very
will be,
different.
right?
Yeah,
So it's not going to be you buying it from a farmer's market. Well, no, farmer's market's probably still going to be good, but you're not buying it from a store a week later.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's you've got a short supply chain there.
Yeah. So going back to your point about colostrum, I would say if you're already taking a probiotic, which I know you are, I don't think it's going to have these added miraculous benefits. And for the cost of some of these products as well, I just really don't think it's
the cost of supplements when you add them all up. It's absurd.
Yeah, it is absurd. And I don't think it's actually worth an addition to your loaded drink, of which is packed with loads of other stuff as well. So
the other thing, so when we were in LA, obviously there's such a cool health scene there, and
you were literally like a kid in a candy store.
My best life.
I was there.
It was so fun.
With one eyebrow raised the entire time, or frowning at everything I was reading. And I was reading the packages. It was like, half these things have got fructose in and things like
I read the package.
Yeah, I know you read the package.
I read the package.
But a lot of people don't.
But one thing that we did come across, and this is another thing that I see a lot of people drinking at the moment, is whether it's collagen. We'll get to my collagen because I have that later on in the morning. It's pearl powder.
Yeah.
As an additive because it's high in calcium, as I understand.
Yeah, so are oyster shells. They're high in calcium as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I was having that in my loaded drink, and now I just need to find one that I can get in the UK.
I mean, it's the same as a calcium carbonate powder that you can buy really cheaply.
It's just had a really good
But
brand.
I don't think you need that. I don't think you need excess calcium. No.
Sounds really good though.
And I would say I think it sounds great, but the other thing that
I don't have any. Where am I getting my calcium from?
You're going to get calcium.
I don't drink dairy.
But you'll be. It's not generally. You eat a lot of Parmesan, that's for sure.
I do.
So
low lactose?
You'll be getting it from cheese, you'll be getting it from nuts and seeds, you'll be getting it from tofu. Okay. Tofu is actually a very high source. The high source in seeds is sesame, so we eat like tahini. You're getting calcium lots of sources. And I think, do you take a multivitamin as well?
No, but after your recent podcast where you changed your view on multivitamins, I'm waiting for you to tell me which one I have to take.
Yeah. We'll probably do another episode on that. But I've started taking multivitamins for the last month and a half, and I've genuinely felt a bit different.
Really?
And I was so skeptical. There's a video of me very recently from this year talking about multivitamins and how I just really don't think they're worth it. But I have been looking at studies where they do low dosing of multivitamins or non-broad spectrums. What does that mean? So not looking at the entire spectrum of vitamins and minerals and replacing them at high enough doses. It's a very similar story to vitamin D. So, there's a lot of skeptics on vitamin D. Like a lot of people think we don't need to worry about vitamin D. We get enough from the sun and we get enough from our food. Yeah. And
even if you live in somewhere like the UK where the sun is only seasonal?
But even though it's government recommendation for winter months, there are some people who just really disregard their vitamin D story. And they're looking at genuine papers, but what a lot of these papers have not accounted for is the fact that loads of people take vitamin D at a standard dose, but we don't know what their baseline level is. They might have been deficient, they might have been optimal, and so you might not see the changes that someone who's going from a very low level to a decent level is going to experience in terms of fatigue or bone pain or any of those things.
That's like with any supplement though.
Exactly,
anything that you're adding to your diet, everyone starts from a different baseline.
Exactly, yeah. So I think the studies that I've been looking at from multivitamins are underdosed and they have not been broad spectrum.
Sure.
And Julia pointed out a bunch of studies that she's done, particularly focusing in the mental health space, that used specifically very high doses. Just want to caveat that, very high doses, which can be a little bit, I wouldn't recommend this at a population level for sure. I think it has to be individualized. My point, going back to calcium, is we shouldn't be overdosing on things like calcium because if you're taking unopposed calcium, it can end up in your arteries if you don't have good levels of vitamin K2, which is quite deficient in our diets anyway. And so with these kind of powders, it sounds like innocuous, but actually they could be pushing up your calcium levels.
Well, that's good to know. So my loaded drink will remain at just my electrolytes and my creatine.
Yeah. So electrolytes is another one. So electrolytes is... again, I'm naturally a bit skeptic about electrolytes for people who don't sweat a lot.
Okay.
So you exercise pretty intensely when you can, obviously around Raphael. You're getting a sweat on most days. For folks who do that or sauna, I think electrolytes are useful if you're doing long runs and that kind of stuff. For people who are just taking electrolytes because they feel it's going to give them a cognitive benefit, I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical about that. I don't think there's enough evidence.
Very saturated market for electrolytes.
Electrolytes have just come out of nowhere.
They really have.
It's really,
Can we have some low sugar ones that don't taste awful?
It doesn't need to have sugar. It doesn't need to have any sweetener at all.
I know.
It should just be.
Some of them are just awful.
So the electrolyte that I take is just a cheap one from Amazon that's got a specific amount of sodium, potassium, chloride in, and nothing else. It just tastes like salt, as it should do. It doesn't have these
watermelon flavor, guava,
dextrin or natural flavors. None of that stuff. It's the same thing with gummies. Like people have this obsession with creatine gummies. I know you don't, but there's no creatine in a lot of these gummies that are being marketed.
I know.
So
I think it's probably just because if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Because that applies to a lot of health things, right? When you were reviewing the green powders, and you slated the one that I took, but I now take a new one. So interested to hear your thoughts on that one. If they taste nice, they're not good. If the creatine gummies are tasting good, there's not enough creatine in them.
There's not enough creatine in it. If you can't taste that chalkiness.
If the electrolytes taste like guava, like sorbet, they're not
good.
Be good. That's kind of like the rule of thumb, right?
Yeah, totally.
There you go.
Okay, creatine. I'm a big creatine fan. I think 5 grams for you is great. You could, now you've been on it for 6 months, you could start pushing up the dose to 10 grams and just seeing how you feel. But if you're getting those tangible benefits in the gym, you're feeling stronger, there might be some brain health benefits. I think the jury's still out on those. It's a very cheap, easily accessible supplement. You're taking a pure one that's made by Korea Pure, or at least certified by Korea Pure, which means it's third-party tested and it's got 100% creatine monohydrate in. So I think that's great. Yeah, I wouldn't change that.
So next up, after my loaded drink, I then brush my teeth and I tongue scrape.
Yeah.
Now this is one that you thought was ridiculous.
I thought it was
with my
absolutely
metal.
ridiculous.
Now it's metal. It's not copper. I don't know if I need to switch to a copper tongue scraper because they seem to be like a separate thing.
Yeah.
What are your views on tongue scraping?
Well, so we had Dr. Victoria Sampson on the pod, who's a functional dentist, and she was like, "Yeah, absolutely, tongue scraping is a good practice." I was like, "But why?" She was like, "First of all, don't use your toothbrush,
Yes,
because that can be quite abrasive to the little papillae, I think she describes them as, on your tongue, which are your taste receptors." But there is some evidence that it supports a reduction in bad breath and the volatile compounds that can cause that. It doesn't replace, obviously, toothbrushing and flossing and all the rest of it, but as an add-on, it can remove that biofilm that generates those sort of malodorous compounds. So, yeah, I was wrong. I'm happy to admit that tongue scraping is a thing. Use a metal one. There might be some benefits for copper. I'm not too sure, but as long as it's
I think
like,
some of them are really like branded. They're like copper. That's like the USP.
gotcha.
So I don't know. Maybe I need to upgrade mine.
Maybe. I mean, like, I think of silver as having that natural antimicrobial property. I don't know about copper, but I think this all stems from like Ayurvedic practices. So Ayurvedic tongue scrapers are known, it's been practiced for centuries. They use a lot of copper in their other products. So there are jugs that you can have with copper lining, like proper copper lining. And that's how you put your water in there, and it sort of, I don't know what it does, but it infuses or gets rid of some of the bacteria or something.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, there are some
basket.
benefits to that. Adds
It's the basket. Or you could do like Miranda Kerr and infuse your water with crystals.
You could do that.
You could. You know how I feel about Miranda
I know,
Kerr.
yeah, I know you love Miranda Kerr. Is that where you're getting a lot of your information from?
I'm not going to tell you my sources, but I do love Miranda Kerr,
Why
and
can't you tell us your
I love
sources?
her products. I do.
I know, I can see a lot of them. What are they called?
Core Organics, because she had one of the first certified organic skincare lines.
Yeah, that's
From
pretty cool.
And she's an OG.
That's
when it comes
pretty
to that.
cool. Yeah, it's like Jessica Alba, who started
with Honest.
Yeah. Which are, you know, these companies wouldn't have existed, and I don't think the attention on just how dirty our supply chains are when it comes to mass-produced products are and have been without some of these brands. So you know, respect to those. I know a lot of people like to hate on influencers, particularly in the wellness arena. That's not me. Although I have been very skeptical of your tongue scraper, but no, that's fine.
So on the leaderboard, that's 1 to Rochelle.
That's definitely. Oh yeah. Well, this isn't a competition. At least I don't think so. Anyway.
Then after I've done that, and this is something that I love doing and I've been doing for years, dry brushing for lymphatic drainage.
Yeah.
So before I have a shower, obviously activate all my little lymph nodes or lymphs, whatever they're called.
Your lymph.
You tap them, etc. And then dry brushing.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I've skipped like my most favorite part. And you know this because it's like my morning ritual right after, this happens after the meditation.
Actually, can we just pause there? Because you mentioned filtered water, and I think that's really
filtered
important.
water, yes.
Yeah. So we have a water filtration system that uses reverse osmosis.
Yeah.
Gosh, I remember when I first came across reverse osmosis, and I was like, this does not sound like something that is a thing. Like, it just sounded really woo-woo and wacky.
I think it's the osmosis word.
Yeah, I think it's this reverse osmosis. I was like, I've heard of osmosis. I know what osmosis is, you know, the movement of particles from a more concentrated solution to a less concentrated solution across a semi-permeable membrane. Why would you do reverse? Like, how does that even... Anyway, I was wrong about that. So reverse osmosis is a very sort of heavy-duty filtration system that removes a lot of the crap that is in our water. And we're doing a podcast on water soon, actually, with an expert in this field, because our water, unfortunately, is contaminated with a lot of these things, volatile compounds, some heavy metals, pesticides, unfortunately. You know, it just leaks into our water system. And unless you're like bleach it, or I think it's partly because of the treatment of water as well as the fact that a lot of people just flush their tablets down the bathroom, down the toilet, and unfortunately that gets into our system, including contraceptive pills as well.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah.
That is worrying.
It's a big problem, I think. I don't think it gets that much attention. There are lots of xenoestrogens in our world. So one of the things that we made a decision to do, particularly as we were partly formula feeding Raphael, was to get a heavy duty water filtration system, and we used I forget the brand now. Aquatrue, that's it. Again, we're not sponsored or anything, but
I could not believe the taste change.
Yes.
So the water filter takes 15 minutes and you just sort of watch it go in and out, and like it's all cloudy when it comes out. The flavor, like the taste is completely different.
Very different, yeah.
Because London tap water is notoriously awful.
Yeah, the
taste wise.
The thing that we need to do actually, because that guy Jay came over from Light Room, I think it is. I should look that up actually.
Something like that.
Yeah, Lightroom. I think so. They did a service where they looked at the internal environment of our house, which is really cool. And there are loads of things that it looked at. They looked at mold. They looked at EMF. They looked at particles in the air, and they looked at water quality. And they tested our water filtration system, which they rated as excellent because it didn't have any nasties in. Yeah.
Oh, that's
great.
But
because reverse osmosis is so good, it actually strips it of minerals. And we get trace minerals from our water, tap water. So
I need to add these to my loaded water then, because people are adding minerals.
There is a thought that we need to add some trace minerals back to the water itself. So that's just something that we need to.
Can you remind me? I need to get minerals. I should have mentioned that. So that's another thing that I see people do, adding minerals to their water. And I think that would really elevate my. It would really elevate my water.
Well, coffee connoisseurs, they add a certain mineral content to their pure water. Yeah. Oh. So I remember watching this on Shark Tank actually years ago. There was this guy who was basically saying, these little sachets, when you add this to your water, you add it to like 2 liters of like fresh water, adds minerals, and that elevates the coffee experience when you use that water to make your espresso
from the taste.
Or whatever. Yeah, from the taste perspective.
That's so interesting.
Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, we need to add some trace minerals back to our water.
Okay, so I need to add that back in my red light mat. Okay. Sorry, we were talking about dry brushing. So for lymphatic drainage.
Yeah.
Now, this was really tested when I was pregnant because, as when you're pregnant, especially when you get further along, you tend to retain a lot of water.
Yeah.
And I was we'll get to my favorite part of my wellness routine in a minute, but I was doing dry brushing. I just continued with my dry brushing routine, and I do some Gua Sha and ice rolling, which we'll get onto. I'm telling you, I did not get puffy. And it has to be because of the dry brushing and the lymphatic drainage, because I did it consistently every day. And I think it just helped move stuff around, because I never felt that, obviously you feel like quite, bloated and uncomfortable the further along you get. But I didn't feel like I was retaining water around my face and stuff. And I think that can be quite common. So that is my top tip for anyone who's pregnant. I know I told one of our close friends, that was my gift, was an ice roller and a lymphatic drain.
You've gifted this ice roller to so many people. It literally is. I can't believe we
skipped over this. This is my favorite part of our morning routine. So I do this after my meditation red light. It's my coffee and ice rolling.
Yeah.
I love it. I have 2 ice rollers.
Yeah.
I've bought a lot of these over the years. My favorite one is the Skinny Confidential one. It really retains the cold. So you can either put it in the fridge. I put mine in the freezer because I'm someone who gets sort of sinus pain, and I wake up and I feel a bit congested, and it is the most soothing,
you do love
best experience. Yeah. I love it. I've bought this ice roller for basically anyone for Christmas.
It's like your morning beauty spa treatment. Like, you absolutely love it. It's an understatement to say you love it, because A, you've gifted it to so many of our friends, and B, you use it religiously, and whenever we travel, it has to come with us.
I bought the travel one. So last time we came to Australia, I just bought one locally, and it wasn't as good. And this one is and you pay for it, but it's so great. So I just bought the travel one, which is what I've bought to Australia, and it has a contour side as well. But it's really nice, and not only the beauty aspect of it, but it gets sort of things moving, lymphatic drainage, and it takes away pressure from my sinuses. So I feel like visibly it sort of snatches you a little bit, but it feels so nice on my sinuses. Maybe it's just like a personal thing. When I wake up, I'm a bit heady. So I love that soothing feeling.
It's quite common, actually. A lot of people have that feeling. And lymphatic drainage is definitely a thing. So should we talk about lymph?
Yep, let's go for it.
So what is your understanding of lymph? And honestly, there's no correct or wrong. It's just your understanding, because you've clearly heard about this.
So it's sort of like just getting, it's sort of like detoxifying, and it's sort of about moving things along through your system so they can come out your lymph nodes.
Okay, this is good for me, because this is basically how people are thinking about lymph. So lymph is essentially this clear watery fluid that moves through something called your lymphatic system.
Yeah.
And your lymphatic system are a network of vessels that run alongside your blood circulation. You also have nodes as well. So you have lymph glands in your neck that can sometimes be raised when you've got an infection. I check yours all the time. You have them under your armpits. You have them in the groin, and the lymph itself is made up of largely water, but also proteins, fat, immune cells, waste products, cellular debris, and this idea of lymphatic drainage is where you're essentially reducing swelling and improving fluid balance. So when you think about lymph, it's got multiple different roles. It's essentially, blood pushes your fluid into the tissues where it delivers nutrients and oxygen. Your lymph system returns the excess back to the bloodstream. Lymph itself is also where you have a lot of immune sensing cells and immune cells as well. And they almost act like checkpoints, which is why when you get ill and you get this raised lymph node, it's essentially like your immune cells checking up and collecting some of these the cells to sort of fight any infection that you've got. And that's why you get an excessive amount there, because it's responding to an infection, which is why they're raised. And they also transport fat as well. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. So when you the fat that you absorb from food enters your lymph from the gut, and it eventually drains into the bloodstream as well. So lymph is like this really important system that we have. But the difference between your blood central system and lymph is that it doesn't have a pump. So when you think about blood coursing through your body, your pump is your heart. That's what's giving you that pressure to bring it, which is why we have blood pressure. We don't have that system for lymph, and it relies on movement. So movement is the most important thing when it comes to lymphatic drainage. So when people start over-indexing, I'm not saying this is you, but when they start over-indexing on things like dry brushing or Gua Sha? Yeah, explain what Gua Sha is.
I think
to folks.
Gua Sha is like a Chinese medicine technique. You tend to use a crystal stone, or I think it's made out of jade or rose quartz. And it's to sort of stimulate that lymphatic system, and you use it on your face. So, and I do it on the plane. Again, because I get, for vanity reasons, because you do get puffy, but also because I get sinus headaches.
No, totally.
And it really, when you have sinus headaches, it really helps.
Yeah, totally. And
if you sort of hold down the pressure points and you use it, and it's about getting the liquid moving.
There's nothing wrong with it being for cosmetic reasons either. I think everyone wants to look their best.
Two birds, one stone.
Two birds, one stone. But it is really important to get things moving, because your lymphatic system does not have this pump. So it relies on skeletal muscle, like pushing the lymph around, movement, so just constantly moving around, gravity as well. This can change, so like changing the plane, which is why things like yoga and Tai Chi, and when you do inversions and that kind of stuff, you're literally moving your fluid around. I think it's important to do these things. So when we think about lymphatic drainage, the things that I want people to think about are movement, even like jumping on a trampoline, that's great. Tai Chi, gentle movement, treading water, swimming, those are all things.
Okay. Then on this note, talk to me about vibration plates and why they have made a comeback. Now, I remember this from when I was younger. We had the power plate.
Yeah.
Is it the same concept? But because a lot of people now are talking about vibration plates for lymphatic drainage.
Yeah.
Do
yeah,
I need
yeah.
a vibration plate? And
I
is it
don't
the same
think
as a power
so.
plate?
I don't think so. So vibration plates, you're right. They basically jiggle. I remember the power plate.
But
I used
is
to
it
have
the
one
same
at my
thing?
local gym. I think it's the same thing. I haven't looked into these.
They came up hot
personally.
and then they disappeared.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing. But you got to remember, like back in the 1960s, 50s and 60s, they used to have these like machines that were marketed to women to like lose weight or look your best that would literally jiggle you. They would they'd put a belt around the lady and then the machine would like vibrate. And like, I'm sure it's having some sort of impact there, but nowhere near as much as like jumping on a trampoline.
They still have some of those
running.
things like e-pulse and things. Like I know in London, I've done one of those. It felt bizarre.
Yeah.
I didn't love
bizarre. It is bizarre. I don't think like if you're going to spend 10 minutes on something like a power plate or this vibration
Just
thing.
go do some yoga.
You could do some yoga for 10 minutes.
For
You could do
free.
breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. So when you deep breathe, this again is creating some pressure and it's moving lymph around. So to your specific practice of dry brushing and the stuff on your face, I do think there is some evidence for that.
Okay.
So some people do these, I don't know what the name of this practice is. If maybe it's just facial lymphatic drainage, but where you're using specific techniques to move things around. Facial massage, but also eyelids. Like they do it with cotton buds, where you do this thing like goes around there, and then behind your ears, like you can do it around your ears.
I've never seen it with cotton buds, but if you look on like social media, you sometimes I have a very specific algorithm.
Yeah,
but you can see these amazing results where they'll use like a Gua Sha stone and they'll snatch half of their face and they will lift like one of their brows will be so much higher than the other one, and that's all from that manipulation.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Just to caveat that stuff, I think
temporary.
the main thing it's probably temporary first off, but the main thing is, I wouldn't spend excessive amounts of time if you're foregoing exercise.
No,
if you're doing this in addition to all the things that I was saying, swimming, diaphragmatic breathing, general exercise, running, inversions, lifting your legs up a wall. That's it's a very like simple, no cost technique.
Absolutely. You
of
can do
moving
before you
lymph
go
around.
to bed.
Exactly. Doing that before you go to
10
bed.
minutes.
Great. But I would, if you want to do that in addition to the sort of facial exercises, great. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. And I think there might be some cosmetic benefits as well.
Super interesting.
Maybe even some benefits to nasal passages as well that could impact, your breathing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, then when I get to work, I have my green powdered drink.
You do?
I know you've done a podcast on this and you weren't a fan of the one that I was using then, but I'm now using another one.
You actually changed it?
Yeah, I'm not using Symbiotica one. The Symbiotica ones,
it tasted far too sweet.
It actually does taste a bit too sweet. However,
too sweet.
Now in my defense, I followed this. So I was taking this before you did your video on this.
You were.
Now I took your principle of fewer ingredients. And that one met the bill. It has like alfalfa sprouts in it, broccoli sprouts. It had 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
However, it also had cassava sweetener or something like that. And it is a little bit too sweet. But what I thought was super convenient, because it's that liposomal thing. It's a little sachet. I can just like take it when I'm on the tube, etc.
When
so
you're
it was
off to work.
convenient. But then I've actually switched to a powder.
So the one thing that I remember, because I remember
probably won't
tasting those on the pod, and broccoli sprout, if you've ever tried broccoli sprouts raw, which you have, or broccoli sprout powder, which is a concentrated version of broccoli sprouts, they are incredibly bitter. So if you're drinking something that has broccoli sprout on the packet in a liquid format, it should taste really bitter. It should nowhere taste sweet.
No.
So the fact that they have cassava, sugar, whatever it was, just signals to me this is mostly sugar and very, very minimal broccoli sprout powder.
I've switched now.
And broccoli sprout powder, I would say is one of those that is worth investing in if you're looking for anti-inflammatory benefits and even like detoxification benefits as well. There were studies where they gave broccoli sprout powder to folks living in China, and they actually demonstrated that more of it was coming out of their urine because it upregulated a certain pathway in your liver. And
is that good or bad?
Good, because you're actually reducing
to.
your environmental pollutant exposure.
That's great.
So broccoli sprouts, I'm a big fan of. So you're now, what are you drinking now?
The Wellco the Elmer Thurston one.
Okay. Yeah,
She was one of the OGs when it came to green powders. She was.
Yeah.
And it's not AG1.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I don't mind these. I think again that powder's got loads of ingredients in. It doesn't taste like it should. It should taste disgusting. It tastes pretty good from memory.
It tastes drinkable.
It tastes drinkable.
Yeah, I know. There's the red flag.
I don't have a problem with people drinking green powders. I think, look, if it gives you the sense that you're doing something good for your body, it doesn't have any nasties in, it's tested to be free of things like heavy metals, that unfortunately is a big problem within supplements. Fill your boots. As long as it, and I know it doesn't for you because I know what you eat, as long as people don't see it as a swap for green vegetables that you consume in their whole form.
It's a supplement.
Regularly.
It's like to supplement
Exactly.
your,
as
the name implies.
Yeah, totally.
But that's interesting when you mention like some of these ingredients have like heavy metal traces.
Yeah.
When you look at the back of a lot of supplements, which you know I've been doing for various reasons, not many of the ingredients, even in the good ones, are organic.
Yeah.
And I think they have trouble from my conversations with supplement manufacturers. They have trouble guaranteeing or certifying that they are organic. And so that's surprising because sometimes you're paying a lot for these supplements and you'd want them to, the ingredients to be all organic, but they're very rarely organic.
Yeah. And
so that's a bit of a challenge.
That is a challenge. And we just did a podcast with professor of genetic engineering, and he's really made me think a lot about pesticides in general, particularly glyphosate. And if you're buying a supplement with a whole food that's been dehydrated, you're getting a concentrated version of that conventionally grown produce. And if it does have pesticide use on it, it stands to reason that you're probably going to get quite a lot of pesticide in that product as well. So these are the things that you just got to concern yourselves with when you're, taking all these different powders. But I think yours is largely organic, right? So
I think it's a good quality one, but I don't think all of the ingredients are organic. From my review.
And look, the thinking behind green powders and stuff, which I'm a fan of. Like I actually I haven't taken it for a while, but there is a green powder. I forget the name of it now. I think it's Dr. Schultz that I'm a fan of. It tastes disgusting. You've tried it.
See,
it's got C.
That's the green flag.
Yeah, that is the green flag. Exactly.
It's too good to be true. Otherwise.
Yeah. It's too good to be true. These nicely cut flavored ones. They're not great. But the one that I've got, it's got sea vegetables in. It's got broccoli sprouts in. It's got a whole bunch of things, and these are actually demonstrated to have inflammation reducing properties. It might be beneficial from a cancer perspective, reducing DNA breaks, reducing oxidative stress. So I take it for those reasons, but it definitely does not replace the broccoli that's also on my plate as well. It's an addition. Yeah, exactly.
So then the last in my morning routine.
Yeah. This is quite a lot for you, and this is why
whilst
people
with a 1-year-old and a full-time job.
Exactly, yeah, because you're also changing nappies and then doing
ready,
his breakfast. You're doing his breakfast. You're doing his meal plan
doing
for the
nutmeg's
day.
red light. And
doing
it's
nutmeg. We've
It's
got
a lot.
nutmeg's food, and we've got you're getting out for your morning light and all that
the
stuff.
morning light. So the morning light one's
it's a lot. So what I just want to say is it is possible, because a lot of people listening to this would be like, how on earth is this?
It's possible.
This is
I'm
not
at my
possible.
desk by 9 a.m.
Exactly.
Sometimes a little bit after.
Exactly.
But when I have a 1-year-old, I'm still adjusting to life back at work.
Yeah.
Morning light is super important. It also depends. Like I'm going into the office. If I'm not going to the office, I'll try and go out and get some morning light. But if I'm going to the office, my morning light is the walk to the tube, and then there's no morning light down there.
Yeah. This is why people need to realize that you out wellness me.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Must. So a few years ago, I significantly cut back my coffee consumption, and I swapped from I think I was having 2 or 3, and I went down to 1 plus a matcha. And I love my morning matcha. It's my favorite thing. I'm having that with collagen powder and cinnamon.
Okay.
And it's great.
Yeah. So coffee limiting to 1 day, I think, is a good strategy for you because you're probably a bit more sensitive to coffee.
Yeah, from a sleep perspective, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. Collagen, I would say mixed results, and it depends on what you're actually drinking it for. So the strongest evidence that we have, and I know this is probably what you're drinking it for, is skin hydration and elasticity.
That's exactly why I'm taking it.
So the outcomes are less appealing for things like joints, although anecdotally, a lot of people do swear by it. Collagen is a really interesting area. It's an industry that is booming. The price of collagen has skyrocketed.
And if you want to hydrolyze collagen, that is even more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And the hydrolyzing is just like a process that makes some of those amino acids more accessible.
Yeah.
The difference between collagen and like a whey protein powder is that it over-indexes on specific amino acids like proline and isoproline, I think it is. And there's another one that is evading me. And it doesn't have much of the leucine, which is the branch chain amino acid that is a master signal for muscle growth.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't use collagen if you're looking to maximize your gains. You might use collagen if you're like looking to improve your skin or maybe improve your joint health, although that's less clear.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing for you to have collagen, whether that's a marine source or a bovine source. Again, cost implication of this. Would it be better to get it from things like bone broth or just having high vitamin C diet, which you already do? I mean,
Could do all of these things.
Yeah, these are.
That's the strategy. Is just cross your fingers, hope for the best.
You're basically doing everything.
Hedge my bets.
Oh yeah, which is and I don't think it's unsafe. I don't think you're putting yourself at risk.
No,
that's
but I do think, and like when you talk to people about collagen, I was chatting with someone quite literally at the water cooler at work about collagen because she was making a little drink and she was raving about this collagen.
Yeah.
And she was saying that she's got all of her family onto this collagen, and she noticed when she stops taking it for like a week, like if she goes on holidays or something, she doesn't bring it with her. She's like, I can tell the difference in her skin.
Okay.
She can tell a difference. And I think that is the case.
Okay. Well, those studies actually did look at subjective appearance of skin and elasticity and all the rest of it. So, if it works for you, whether it's placebo or not, it doesn't really matter. If it works for you, that's great. The other thing is you got cinnamon in your...
Cinnamon, yes, because sometimes I add a tiny bit of maple syrup. Like if I'm at home and I can control the amount that's going in it. Like if I'm out, I don't, because like people heavy pour that. Yeah. I'll add a little bit of cinnamon. I think that's a glucose goddess tip, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit of a
So I add a little bit of cinnamon to it.
So
also because it's a lovely flavor.
Yeah, it's a great flavor. I think it has natural sweetness. I think there are studies that show small improvements in blood glucose in type 2 diabetic populations. So in healthy adults, less so. I don't think it's a substitute for anything, but cinnamon, again, you're adding more polyphenols into your diet. It's really high in the ORAC score. It's very high in antioxidants or whatever. So, I think it's great as an overall spice to add if it's adding flavor. Matcha, again, is another one of those ingredients. It's got a little bit of caffeine in, L-theanine, but it also has like a rich array of different polyphenols that we know are anti-inflammatory.
And it needs to be ceremonial grade.
It has to be ceremonial
and
grade.
only made with 70-degree water. So if you buy a matcha, and this is my pet peeve why I very rarely buy matcha outside of my office where they've been trained to make it. They make it properly because a lot of time you buy a matcha, they charge you a fortune for it.
Yeah.
They also really give you a heavy dose, I noticed when I was pregnant, particularly because you have to monitor your caffeine levels. Yeah. It's really bitter sometimes. They're obviously like giving you quite a lot, but if the milk is too hot, they've burnt off all the antioxidants, as I understand, because the whole point of matcha is it needs to be made at 70 degrees.
Yeah, well, it's 80 degrees or less, which is fine. But a lot of places will just pour boiling hot water. And it's the same thing with tea as well, generally, because, I mean, green tea is still on that spectrum of tea. It's just a young tea. And with coffee as well, it shouldn't be brewed higher than, I think our machine is set up at like 91 or 92 degrees centigrade. Okay. Again, you don't want to be burning your ingredients because you're literally cooking off those antioxidants. Yeah. So there
you go, something to be on the lookout for when your matcha is too hot.
There you
go.
Good. There you go. It's a top tip from Rochelle right there. I approve of your matcha and cinnamon routine. Collagen, if you're looking for those benefits, why not? I don't think there's anything harmful about it. But we've had loads of guests that have differing opinions on this as well. Yeah. Like we had Jenna Machoki, she's a fan of collagen. She's cited a whole bunch of studies for both joint health and skin. But then we also had Dr. Andy Galpin on. He was like, nah, don't think it's worth it. You know, but he's coming at it from a exercise physiology perspective. I don't think he's really particularly interested in researching
the
skin.
skin benefits.
So, you know, each to their own. But if you can afford
their
it and you want to add it to your routine, adds a bit of sweetness as well because of the glycine, why not?
Yeah. So then we go on to my nighttime routine. So that's
You were working throughout this entire time as well and like messaging me.
This is done quite quickly. I mean, we've talked about it like step by step.
Yeah.
So at night, the principles are no phone. And to be honest, it's not been that great with Rafi because, you know, anyone who's had a baby knows that you don't ever get a minute to yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't be on your phone texting with them because the little grabby hands are all over your phone.
Yeah.
So no phone before bed for like an hour and a half, 2 hours ideally. This I do not always do anymore.
You're really
and
good
in the
at this
morning,
though, Rochelle.
apart from my meditation, trying not to look at it for the first hour.
Yeah.
After that is not realistic. Limiting that view because I noticed that I sleep a lot better without. I just turn it onto airplane mode and we have it in another room on charge when we go to bed, and I sleep a lot better because I will notice on the days that I'm not doing that, I'm breaking all my own rules, and I'm on Instagram or I'm like on Amazon buying things. I really don't sleep well.
Yeah.
If I go to bed straight afterwards. So it's something that I know I have to stick to.
Yeah, you're really good at that. And I think that's influenced me even because I know the science behind it. I know the benefits of like removing your phones, but I would, you know, you'll call me out as well. Like I'll sit there in bed and I'll just be like texting.
Yeah.
So that's not great.
Yeah.
So what I've done is copied you in this respect, and you've also added
Two to Rochelle's leaderboard.
You got two. You've definitely got two. But you got the hour before, hour in the morning as well.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I think is a good thing to keep. And then was it 2 hours before bed?
Ideally, it depends. We want to be in bed like. If I can be in bed between 8:30 and 9:30, that is ideal.
Yeah.
Very infrequently am I in bed after 9:30.
Yeah.
So we prioritize sleep, and I know that I need 8 hours. Even last night I had 4 hours sleep because of the jet lag, and I feel ruined today. And I can't even blame that on Raphael. But being in bed early and self-imposing a rule of no TV for me during the week before I go to bed. Instead, I go to bed and I read. And I sleep so much better now.
So a lot of people struggle with that.
You started doing this as well recently because you sometimes do work into the evening.
I do. Yeah, you're very good at actually keeping me from doing that.
But you sleep better now that you're reading more.
So much better. Like
even if you get into bed later.
Totally.
Like if you come home, like you've been out for dinner or something, and you just read a few pages.
Yeah.
It sends you off to sleep.
Yeah. So there's loads of evidence for not using your phones late into the night. We had Professor Russell Foster come on, and I think there was this notion that it's the blue light from your screens that's disrupting your melatonin signaling, which means it inhibits melatonin, which is the sleepy hormone as it's colloquially known, and it can impact the speed at which you go to sleep and all that good stuff. Actually, he thinks it's more to do with the stimulatory effect of like being on social media or responding to emails or thinking about work, and actually you want time for it to just for your wind down routine, so you get into a point in your night that you can just drift off. And you've been really fastidious at that, and that no morning phone use and no use of phone in the evenings, I think is definitely
and the other thing, and I'm not perfect with that, I need to get better, but you have a tendency to turn all the lights in the room. Like you'll have a shower, then you'll turn all the lights on, and I can't stand it. I'm like, there's too much light. And I flick it off and I put the lamps on because I think, again, it's part of that wind down mechanism. I don't want bright light before I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
I need to have like it's sort of a very calm environment. Etc.
So another thing that I'm pretty sure is light work. Let me just check this actually. Light work. It is called light work. So when light work came over and they like reviewed our house and all the rest of it, one of the things that they recommended were incandescent light bulbs. So these are the old school light bulbs that don't use LED because LED.
How funny is that? So they're not energy efficient.
They're not energy efficient.
Trade-offs.
No, this is a trade-off. Yeah, exactly. Or you could just switch them off. Have less of them.
Yeah.
But the specific wavelength of these LED lights can be disruptive to your melatonin, whereas the incandescent ones are lower. There are also some specialized Philips ones as well that you can buy that I haven't looked into. I need to get some of those.
Let's do that.
They're red, like colored.
I was listening to someone talk about her red lights. You could probably guess what podcast they heard this on.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
What is the podcast that you listen to all the time?
It's my favorite podcast. It's not the Doctor's Kitchen.
It's not the Doctor.
It's a
Which
great
one is
podcast,
it?
Rupi. Lots of people think that. The His and Her Show.
His and Her Show. That's it. Okay,
I mean, we're doing our own variation now.
Basically, yeah.
I know that she loves her red lights in her bedroom.
Yeah.
And again, to like sort of calm you before you go to bed. And I think it does sort of, I think it is sort of like quite soothing because you don't want bright light right before you're going to go to bed, like shut your eyes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then magnesium before I go to bed as well, magnesium supplements.
Yeah, you take your magnesium. Actually, just on that note about the phones and stuff like that, I think there is a study looking at media use before sleep, and it showed that you basically want to protect the bookend of your day, because there is like clear evidence that you are disrupting your signals before you go to bed. So it's definitely something that you want to maintain.
I need to finish reading the Dose book.
Yeah, the Dose. Yeah, TJ Power, who's on the pod to start this.
You gave me you bought the book for me.
It's brilliant.
I'm halfway through it. I didn't bring it all the way here. But
Brilliant.
I'll finish it when I get back.
It's funny. I suggested this to someone the other day who was like taking, what was it, ashwagandha, and some other sleep supplement to help them go to sleep. He was asking me about magnesium as well, that we'll go into in a second. And I was like, yeah, you could definitely take those, but like, what are you doing in the last couple of hours before going to bed? And he was like, I watch TV, I might do a few emails, I check my phone, all that kind of stuff. I was like, dude, this is what you need to be removing before and having an earlier dinner. These are things that are going to produce sleep. But as soon as I said you can't watch TV or use digital devices a couple of hours before bed, he was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I'd rather supplement my way out of a bad habit.
But do you know what? Maybe it's worth.
You can't do that. And you don't do that. I'm not saying.
Maybe it's worth just trying it and seeing if there's an impact. If you try it and you feel no impact, then go back to watching TV or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But you mentioned the eating earlier, and this is a big thing for you.
Yeah, big thing for me.
When you come home, you're like, I want to eat now. I'm like, well, Raphael's just eating. It's literally, the birds are still up. And it requires like a whole nother level of organization to have dinner that early and manage like bedtime, etc. But for you, you think that it makes you sleep a lot better. You really feel it, the benefit.
Huge difference. I can definitely tell because I use my wearable. I can check my sleep quality. I know what my trends are. When I have an early dinner, I go to sleep quicker. My deep sleep is preserved, and I just I stay asleep. I have good quality sleep throughout the night. Yeah. So
not always possible, but where it is,
totally,
like, there's
it's a guide, not like a rule. I mean, we'll go out for dinner. We were just planning where we're going to go out for dinner this week, actually, whilst we're in Sydney, and I'm looking for bookings that
Rupi wants to go for dinner at 6 o'clock. We are like grandparents, Rupi. 8:15. We're on holidays.
I know, but he wakes up early and he's jet lagged. Anyway, you're taking magnesium.
So magnesium, I find also really helps for sleep before bed. Yeah. Over to you in terms of optimal dose.
Look, I think magnesium can definitely improve sleep in some groups, particularly the elderly with insomnia. I'm not saying that you're elderly or an insomniac. I think it really depends on the quality of the supplement you're taking. So the ones that I recommend are magnesium threonate, glycinate, and biglycinate. There are lots of different, brands out there, but those are the ones that you're looking for specifically for sleep. And the potential mechanism is a potential effect on melatonin, again, the sleepy hormone, stress hormones in some trials as well. And it sort of antagonizes certain neurotransmitters that can keep you awake. So that have that anti-stimulating effect. So the dose, I know you take too high a dose.
I do take too high a dose, but it works for me.
We're looking at 400 milligrams of magnesium. I think you take double that or something.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot more than that. But it works for me. So
and look, you can get enough magnesium from your diet, and you probably are already. You're getting your greens in, you're getting things like pumpkin seeds, you're getting, other nuts, you're getting enough minerals from, your diet generally. If you want to use that as a supplement to add to it, great. The thing that I would recommend people be aware of are digestive complaints, it has a laxative effect, so it's sometimes used to treat constipation.
I didn't know that.
So it just might be something just to monitor
with caution.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
And then my mouth tape.
Oh my God.
I love mouth taping. And this was one that you were very skeptical about. And
I
obviously
was.
It's not an attractive look.
No.
But it's not an attractive
Yours
look.
looks like a mustache as well.
It's
like
not a
when you put
mustache.
it
They're
on.
meant to be lips, Rupee, not a mustache. I used the Drift ones. I got them off Health. But they're really nice also because some of the cheap ones that you can buy from Amazon, because obviously like they can be really expensive when you think it's another thing to add to your wellness regime.
Yeah.
But the cheap ones on Amazon rip your lips because you have to have them dry, otherwise they won't stick properly.
Yeah.
And so when you're removing it in the morning, and I know some people say that you should use like a mist or something to help remove them, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The Drift ones that I use actually like are more gentle because you don't want to be ripping off your like
your
the skin on your lips. Like that's awful, especially if you're doing it every day. So I really like it, and I find that I sleep so well with my mouth tape, and that's probably because I was a mouth breather, and so a lot of people aren't, and so then they don't need mouth tape. So for me, it's encouraged me to sleep with my mouth closed. Last night, I went out for lunch yesterday, and Rupi will attest, I had a few drinks, and I didn't take my magnesium, and I didn't have my mouth tape on. But I noticed when I was awake at 3 a.m. with jet lag, I wasn't breathing through my mouth.
Yeah.
My mouth had so it's almost like trained me into breathing through my nose.
Yeah.
And I sleep really well with it now.
Have you noticed that through the day as well, that you're actually breathing through your nose more often when you're just walking around or at your desk?
I've not thought about it.
Okay. Because I consciously think about nasal breathing generally when I'm up and about. So when I'm exercising at a low intensity.
Oh, yeah.
Or when I'm just like walking around or just like, cooking in the studio or whatever. Yeah, you're doing it now. I can tell you're doing it now.
I'm going to think about it
But,
this week.
you got to think about your nasal passages as well, because sometimes, because of stuffiness or air particles, it can just cause a bit of obstruction. And some people struggle with that. I definitely have in the past actually struggled with nasal breathing more generally. Yeah. But I think...
You are a heavy breather, Rupi.
And
our son has inherited it. You can hear him breathing a mile away.
Yeah. So you've been doing it for how long now?
I was thinking about it whilst I was pregnant. I didn't want to start at that point. It kind of felt weird to introduce something that might restrict my breathing.
Sure, yeah.
So I started after Raphael was born.
Yeah, okay.
And I sleep so much better. And who has started mouth taping?
Okay, so I have started mouth taping.
Number 3 for Rochelle.
That is number 3, yeah. So I spoke with a bunch of people actually, but more recently it was Dr. Stacey Dr. Stacey Whitman, and she is a functional dentist out in the States. She was on the Andrew Huberman podcast earlier this year, and she's incredible, so knowledgeable. Was previously a skeptic of many things, including things like fluoride in the water, and has changed her tune in a number of different ways after looking at the evidence. One of the things that she's a fan of is mouth taping. Now, I want to caveat here, we're talking about mouth taping from a sort of like the extra benefits to sleep and a whole bunch of other things that I'll go into in a second. But if you have an obstructive sleep disorder, or you have nasal obstruction, of which there are many different causes, this isn't something to do on your own. It's something to do with a practitioner, or at least with some advice from your respiratory physician or whoever you're seeing. So the proposed benefits of nasal breathing is that it sort of enforces nasal breathing. Why would we want to breathe through our nose, like over our mouths? Well, it essentially protects you from dry mouth, which has local effects in your affecting your saliva. So you don't want to dry out your mouth overnight, because your saliva is not just keeping everything moist; it's actually having an immune function as well. It protects your the environment within your mouth. You have your bugs there. Your oral microbiome is just as important as your gut microbiome as well. So there are some potential benefits. nasal breathing almost acts like air conditioning. So it treats the air that we're breathing in, like almost like a filtration system. So it traps any sort of particles. It warms the inspired air as well. It removes things like pathogens, and then anything that is potentially hazardous, it's cleared by something called the mucociliary system. So activating your immune system. The other thing that gets touted a lot, which you've probably heard about, is nitric oxide. Have you heard about that? You heard about it in your little podcast? No? Okay, fine. So the paranasal sinuses, they produce something called nitric oxide, which can reach the lungs. And nitric oxide has the ability to, again, vasodilate. So it dilates some of the blood vessels. And that potentially has a better oxygenating effect. So basically more oxygen gets through your body, and that potentially has these impacts on your heart and your brain, your cognition, all that kind of stuff. Largely unproven, I would say, but there's a mechanism there. And there is another sort of claim that because of this nitric oxide system and the way in which you breathe through your nose, it can lead to some cognitive benefits as well. Again, this is all very hand-wavy stuff, but I would say the best thing is if you're using mouth taping and you literally feel the benefits the next day and you've got an objective measure of improvements in your sleep, it's kind of like a why not. The reason why people are skeptical about this is because when you literally shut off your mouth and you're not allowing yourself to off gas, so remove some of the CO2 efficiently, it can lead to buildup of that CO2 in your body, which is not something you want if you can't efficiently expel air through your nose.
So my mouth tape has a little hole there.
Exactly.
Which is for the off-gassing purposes.
Exactly.
Now I understand.
So
okay.
the one that...
I thought it was so you could have a sip of water through a straw.
The one that she recommended me was, I think it was by Patrick
Now
McKeown.
that one looks like a moustache. It's so unattractive.
It looks like a box.
It
looks
is
like
so unattractive. This is not a pretty bedtime routine.
No, it's not. It's not one for not an attractive one at all. Who's the it's like Ricky Gervais in The Office, he's got like a little box. It looks like that basically. Exactly right. So the reason why is because it's not like causing a physical barrier across your mouth. It's just gently pursing your mouth. So if I did need to like breathe through my mouth at any point, I can just breathe through my mouth, which is pretty cool.
But it's interesting to see that the mouth tape, like it has now taught me to breathe through your my nose at night, as was evidenced last night.
Yeah. So I would say, and I've been doing it for the last month plus, I would say now.
Yeah.
I've definitely felt the benefits.
Yes.
My sleep has objectively improved. I'm looking at my tracker. My deep sleep has definitely increased. The quality of my sleep is improving. Whether this is because I've habit stacked some other things, like I'm reading before bed, non-fiction, nothing work related. Actually, at the moment I'm reading something work related, but by the by. No TV, eating earlier, it's darker in the evenings, apart from right now whilst we're in Sydney. I think these are things that I'm definitely a fan of. There is pushback against this though, this whole mouth taping thing. Yeah, there was a systematic review that came out. It was called, you're going to love this, Breaking Social Media Fads and Uncovering the Safety and Efficacy of Mouth Taping in Patients.
What else did they cover? I was going to say social media fads. What
I know,
else?
yeah. And it was just specifically on mouth taping. But they were looking at a population who had sleep-disordered breathing or obstructive sleep apnea. I think this is important, though, because a lot of people are touting mouth taping for those who have a genuine issue, like they've got chronic sleep apnea or whatever. And I don't think you can just jump into mouth taping if you've got obstruction in your airways. It's just not.
You want to be able to breathe.
You want to be able to breathe. And I wouldn't say that this would be something for people who have those issues to start. But look, I've been proven wrong a number of times by my wife, and
it's music to my ears.
I'm happy to admit it. I'm happy to admit it. You were right.
So I have a few questions now, things that I'm not doing, but I want to know about. Let's start with castor oil
We've
patches.
been going for a little while, you know. You got to go soon.
But you haven't even answered my question.
Okay, go on. I'll make this quick fire.
Castor oil patches.
I don't think they're worth it. I think
Why
the
do
evidence.
people use them?
So people are using them as like a liver detox thing, and I can't think of a mechanism behind it. It's an Ayurvedic practice where you have like this cloth and you soak it with castor oil and you put it on there and then like you wrap it, and then overnight people show their cloth and it's like all black and all this kind of stuff. And
gross.
yeah, and it's like, oh look, this is my liver like detoxing, and
That can't be
I
good.
don't understand the mechanism. I can't get on board with it. There are no studies that support this. People are using it for pain relief for endometriosis, which I think there might be some benefit, but I don't think it's because it's detoxing. I think it's because
pressure?
you're putting the pressure on there,
Interesting.
you're wrapping it, there's a placebo effect,
Yeah.
and you're adding some oil, and you're probably massaging
like
it in
the
as well.
pressure.
So that
Interesting.
that abdominal massage might be having some impact. It might even be encouraging like improvements in constipation as well,
Movement,
because abdominal massage, also known as abhinayam, I think it's abhinayam or something like that. It's an Ayurvedic practice where you massage around your abdomen, and it encourages you know you to release your stools.
Yeah.
So.
There you go. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's castor oil patches. Wired headphones.
Ooh,
Why
okay.
have we gone away from the AirPod? I love my AirPods. Please don't tell me I need to move to wired headphones.
So there's controversy around this. So when you speak to experts in environmental pollution from radio frequency, they would say that the emissions from Bluetooth devices are so small that the effect is going to be negligible.
Okay.
And we're already awash with a ton of signals anyway. So, you know, there's Wi-Fi all around. If you look at, you know, looking up Wi-Fi right now,
even
there'll be,
holding
we're in
your
a
phone.
building, like there's going to be like 20 different Wi-Fi signals that we're
And your
exposed
Aura
to.
ring.
And my Aura ring, and you know everything. You know,
Yeah.
the microphones, everything's emitting this electromagnetic frequency. So Bluetooth is not going to be having that much of an impact. People are worried because it's so close to your ears, and we use them for extended period of time, that it might have a detrimental impact on your brain.
Okay.
Again, the evidence is not clear, but as a pragmatic move, I don't think we should ridicule people for wanting to remove their headsets if it makes them feel better.
Yeah, totally.
They are quite warm as well, so you know you are close to these devices. In the same way, I wouldn't want to put my laptop on my lap, literally, because I don't want the heat of that, you know, near my genitals. I wouldn't. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable for people to remove their
Fair enough.
headphones. But if you love your AirPods,
I love because I have to carry a baby and you know, handbag and all this, you know, it's just a lot more convenient.
So the thinking is people are just wiring it into their phones now. Is that like the
Yeah,
old
they're
school
like the
wired
old school white ones.
Yeah. I remember those. Yeah. I mean, I really don't use my Bluetooth headphones.
I use mine
that
all
much.
day.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so maybe
Okay.
I need to switch that. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, you're not telling me I absolutely need to, so I'm probably not going to for now.
Yeah.
The other one is tallow oil in everything.
Oh, I just really don't think that's a trend that we need to get on. I think it used to be. Do you remember like 10 years ago when coconut oil was a thing?
Yes,
I mean, it's still a bit of a thing now.
isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
but people were
oil
cooking-
pulling. We
but
massage
Rochelle,
Rafi with coconut
This
oil.
is sacrilegious. People were cooking pasta with coconut oil.
Oh, Nonna would be rolling in her grave.
Nana would not be happy.
She would not be happy with
not
that.
be
That
happy
is-
about that.
Like when you said you were going to put tofu in pasta.
I did put tofu in pasta.
And you did. And my
You
mum
can't
loved
tell.
it.
Yeah, she loves it. She loves it.
But anyway, that's
Yeah,
a
she's
delicious
Italian on both
recipe.
sides
Okay,
as
so
well,
tallow
so-
oil, not a thing.
I don't think so. I think it's high in saturated fat. I don't think we need more saturated fat in our diet. I don't think it's got any of these touted health benefits. I don't think just because you're cooking a chip in tallow oil versus sunflower oil, it's going to magically make this chip healthier.
But
I
what
don't
about
think that's
topical
true.
application? Because that's how it's being used.
Yeah.
Like even yesterday when we were in that health food store,
They're
they were
using
selling
tallow.
tallow oil balm.
Yeah. I think, look, it's going to have this similar moisturizing effects to coconut oil or whatever, but actually coconut oil is somewhat comedonic.
Yeah.
So it basically blocks your pores and it encourages where you can get like spots because of the buildup of the
Oh, okay.
the debris that your cells are naturally producing on the surface. And tallow is slightly less comedonic,
Yeah.
which is why people are like, oh, tallow fix my problems. It's probably because you weren't having a a great hydration
Yeah.
routine before then.
Okay.
So I would not put it on your
That's good to
skin. I
know.
don't think it's got those benefits. And we've got
Okay.
lighter creams these days. So
Sure.
yeah,
Okay, that's a good one. I was wondering about that. And then NAD.
I really don't think it's worth it. So NAD, I think I've discussed this on the podcast before actually. But so the thinking, who told you about NAD?
Instagram.
So NAD are being used as like supplements for longevity.
Yes.
And they've been around for a while now. But there are a number of people who've actually been on the show before who have said that, you know, looking at some of these mouse studies, they showed improvements in longevity. And what happens is this molecule called nucleotide, I'm going to bastardize his name now, nicotinamide riboside, that has shown that it can increase NAD in your cells. And NAD is something that naturally declines as we age. Just because it increases it in cells, I don't think it's, it's touted as having this longevity benefit. I don't think it's worth it. The mechanism that is central to longevity is partly influenced by this, but people are literally spending
it's quite expensive.
Hundreds of pounds per IV. I just don't think it's worth it. And I don't think we have enough human evidence to suggest that it's worth the amount of time as well, because you can't, it's not like a quick shot. You've got to go there for hours at a time. So I really don't think it's worth it. And people injecting at home as well. I just really don't think.
I mean,
so.
I have so many more questions, but we can save that for another time.
You
provided
really
I get
do have
invited
loads
back.
of questions, but we've gone through quite a bit. Look, your routine is amazing, and I think I want people to recognize that it is not just this routine. You exercise, you have an anti-inflammatory diet, you do all these other things. These are the supplements. It's the things.
But I do this because I find it fun.
You do find it fun. You do find it enjoyable.
It doesn't feel like work for me.
No.
So
If it's not work for you, that's
exactly,
fine.
Each to their own. Some people might enjoy elements of it or
Yeah.
none of it at all, and that's totally fine. Each to their own.
Yeah. But you're great.
Thanks, babe.
You're amazing.
Thanks.
The fact
Thanks
that
for
you're able to
inviting me
do all
on
this.
because you couldn't find another guest that was free at this specific podcast time. That's why I'm here, guys.
No, I think it was genuinely because I'm interested in A, how you do it, and B, I think I wanted to open up the audience to the questions that I genuinely get from not just listeners of the podcast and people that I meet, but from my own wife who is not medical, and you're not a researcher, but you're interested in these things. You're interested in health and wellness, and you do a great job. You're looking after our son. Not to say that I'm not getting involved. Of
You're
course
very
I'm
involved, Dad.
I'm trying to be as involved as I
You're
can,
very
but
good.
you're doing these things. You're working full time, and you make time for these things. And yes, some of them come at an expense, but some of them don't. Something like your Gua Sha thing, these are things that are readily available.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are things you splash out on, and there are things that I think are super cheap.
You know what? It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Ruby.
It is.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. Are you teeing yourself up for your own podcast?
No, I'm definitely not. I don't have the time to add anything else to my routine.
Okay.
Next time we can talk about Nutmeg's wellness routine.
We can. Why not?
She has her whole wellness routine.
She does. It is more extensive than mine.
We'll go into that another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, sweetheart. If you loved that episode, you will love the full library of podcasts from the Doctor's Kitchen Library. We talk about everything from inflammation, supplements, and food as medicine. Just like this episode right here. You can click it right now and check it out.